watched that and I was enamored by that. But also, as I looked at the space program, I looked at it with a lens of healthcare because of this guy that's in the slide. Now, I'm probably older than a lot of you here. You might not recognize this guy, but this is the ship's doctor of the Starship Enterprise. And I was fascinated with that. If you think about the Enterprise, they actually advanced or foretold a lot of the things that we have today. For example, the first handheld communications device. Remember? Beat me up, Scotty. Also, the first tablet. And I got a chance to meet with Hura and Nichelle Nichols, who was the first African American that was depicted as an astronaut. Think about that. And she was a communications officer. She walked around with a tablet. The computer itself, desktop computer, was also in that show. So it's amazing to me how sometimes we look at reality, but also science fiction can also predict the future. And so as a kid, I loved reading about Jules Verne, about Gene Roddenberry and his show Star Trek, and H.G. Wells, but there was also one other show that I liked that predicted the future of medicine, and that was the Jetsons. You remember the Jetsons, right? Well, if you don't remember, let me remind you. Here we go. Brings back memories? At least for me.
Meet George Jetson.
We've probably seen this theme song.
Here's my Alright.
Let's take a closer look at the cover right here.
I don't feel good, Mom. I think I'm coming down with Venus virus.
Venus virus, eh? Last week you said it was Martian bumps. Anything to miss the space calculus test.
I tell you, I'm sick. Oh, this is it. It's growing black. Quick, where's a pencil? I've got to make out my will.
All right, hold on. Just hold on. I'll call the doctor. Calling Dr. Racy. Dr. Ken Racy.
Yes, Mrs. Jetson. Somebody got a pain in the tummy-tum-tum.
It's Elroy, Doctor. I think it's the Venus virus this time.
Venus virus? Oh, that could...
So I think you get the idea, right? So what, 40 years ago when this cartoon was on, it predicted what we're doing now in terms of telemedicine, in terms of medicine. It's no longer just telemedicine, it's medicine, and I'll get to that point in just a second. So I'll remind you, so you keep that cartoon in your head as I go on through the presentation. So on that backdrop, I joined the astronaut corps in 1990 and flew 2 missions. As I like to say, traveled over 7.2 million miles, and no, I didn't get any frequent flyer mileage for any of that. But I learned a lot. In fact, we learned a lot. In our mission, we went to the International Space Station, to the Mir Space Station. On that mission, I also got a chance to do a spacewalk, as you heard in my introduction. And I also served as a crew medical officer. Now, prior to becoming an astronaut, I was involved in developing a lot of the flight hardware that's currently in the International Space Station right now. That hardware needed the ability to not only take the vital signs and determine the health of the crew, but to send it back down to us on the ground so that we could make some sort of diagnosis and treatment. And so I did that, and I also, when I flew in space, I got a chance to do the first telemedicine conference in space. So I introduced that term, telemedicine. What is that? It started out as being remote medicine, but these days, by our definition, it is any technology that can be utilized for the delivery of healthcare. And you'll see what I mean in just a minute. So I also think that technology that utilized for healthcare, people who have that lens like me and a number of the scientists have thought about this for many years. And I'd like to put this slide in here to kind of give you sort of the evolution of what we consider to be telemedicine. In the late 1800s, the radio was developed, and I know there's nobody in here old enough to just be looking at the radio, but when the television came out in 1920s, there were visionaries that thought about using the radio and the television for doing remote diagnosis, sort of like what we saw on the Jetsons. When the television, you can see that in the middle. And then later on in 1980s, we had the development of another technology called the ATM. You guys remember that? Well, everybody should remember that. But do you remember how difficult it was to put that card in that ATM for the very first time because we were unsure about whether this was going to work or not? Well, that was thought way back then that we might be doing that these days. And guess what? All of that history, all those visionaries, all of that work that has been done, the space program and here on Earth has resulted into some of the following technologies that I want to share with you. So, I like to say that the future is now in terms of healthcare. And so let me give you some examples of some of the things. I mentioned Star Trek. In the upper right of the slide is another picture of Star Trek, where when there was an injured crew member, that crew member was brought into the sick bay and put onto the bed. And as soon as that patient hit the bed, over the bed to the patient's head, there would be a monitor and automatically the vital signs would come up. Well, we actually have that technology. In fact, it's one of our portfolio companies. The picture right below it is just a little small mat. It's a very simple technology that came from the Department of Defense, and it uses ultra-wideband radar. And so we can take this very simple device, slip it underneath the bed, and it actually sends radar waves into the body and is able to count beats, listen to respiratory rate, or hear respiratory rates, and movement. And so you can take a unmonitored bed and turn it into a monitored bed. You can use this for SIDS for people at home. And so we're beginning to sell those into the market. If you go just to the middle, you'll see a kiosk. Now, you'll see these more and more over the next few years at Walmart, in the CVS's, and Walgreens, where you no longer have to go to the emergency room. You simply will go into the kiosk, slide your debit card, the door will open up, and you walk in, and there'll be a doctor, like we saw in the Jetsons, say, can I help you, Mr. Johnson? And all of that can be done remotely. These handheld devices that we all have, and the iPads that we have, now allow us to do things which we call point of care, which means that you can access your doctor no matter where you are, in your office, on vacation, at home. And so there are all of these devices that are going to make practicing medicine or accessing healthcare very easy. What about robotics? Well, there are a lot of stuff going on in robotics. And again, those robotic techniques came from the space program, and now they're being utilized in doing surgery. And it turns out that it's probably the best way to do certain types of surgery, like prostate cancer, removing prostate cancer, because the robot can do things much more efficient and much finer control than the human can. And I really like the slide there that's on your left, and that is the nurse walking alongside what was depicted as in the Jetsons as Rosie, except for Rosie is the doctor. And that doctor is remotely controlling the robot as he goes and sees patients. And this is something that, right now I think we have about 160 of these robots that are in a lot of the tertiary medical centers today. And that robot is driven by, of course, the doctor. We call that remote presence. So it's allowing us to extend ourselves. So again, telemedicine, the way in which we're practicing medicine, technology utilized for the delivery of healthcare. What other ways can we utilize technology for healthcare? How about behavioral modification using a game, an app? So this, again, is one of our portfolio companies, basis on food. And we're actually using this game to teach young kids how to make right choices in terms of their diet and their health. And we think this is just the beginning of a platform that will allow us to do the implementation of health diseases, like diabetes, heart disease, that we just heard. So this is very